I got it. Oh, yeah. You got it. I got it. Oh, yeah. And it's so close together, they could hardly breathe.
And this is the Wisdom Table coming to you from Grand Houses in Harlem, USA, 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. This is Brother Leroy, member of the Wisdom Table. The Wisdom Table is a collective, it's a workshop consisting of senior women who are preparing to operate and own their own shows, independent, first time ever in the USA. And this program does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of this housing development, NYCHA. Neither do the views reflect anything on the resident council. And we are thankful to the resident council for allowing us the opportunity to be a part of their structure, they're part of their culture, part of their community by way of this independent Black radio station. We have a guest who is a researcher, who is a member of the Nation of Islam. And the context in which we have invited him is to get an idea of the benefits of the book, the two books, How to Eat to Live One, How to Eat to Live Two, and how it can impact positively on your immune system. Why your immune system? Folks are telling you to wear gloves, wear um, motorcycle helmets, wear everything on the outside, but they're not telling you what to do on the inside that can help and alleviate some of the problems coming from what is called comorbidity. That is an existing ailment that becomes worse when you contract some element of COVID 19. Well, without further ado, our guest is Brother Charles Muhammad, New York City Mosque number 7. Thank you for joining us, dear brother.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And we start with How to Eat to Live, which are two books. And we would like to start with your personal journey into the Nation of Islam, what your diet was like, what you were, surviving on, and knew that this was the right way to go. And then you came in contact with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the form of the Final Call column in there, How to Eat to Live, and the books. So share with us that particular journey, then we'll go beyond that.
Thank you. My name is Brother Charles Muhammad. I was introduced to the Nation of Islam while I was in college in Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, where that was the stomping ground, as you could say, of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. And you can't go too far in Boston without running into a person that grew up or knew the Honorable Minister Farrakhan and his family. But on the college campus, this was back in the 90s where the Nation of Islam would come and do speaking engagements. And this particular time was when Minister Conrad was the minister of, I should say Brother Minister Conrad, the minister over New York number 7, but he came up to Boston and gave a lecture with Chuck D, the rapper. So when you're that young, you really aren't able to be cognitive and comprehend everything. But some of the things he said resonated with me, and I began to become curious. And a good friend of mine at the time invited me to the mosque. And it took me a while to get acclimated into understanding everything that was involved in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But the militancy, the discipline, the beautiful faces, the treatment in the mosque was very pleasant. And the sincerity just won me over, and I wanted to learn more. So I joined. I joined when I was 20 years old. That was about 25 and a half years ago in 1995. But the ironic thing is that was right before the Million Man March in September. So I thought that this is it
You're
like this
tuned
all the
in to
time.
Okay.
ghcr.nyc, Grant Houses Community Radio.
So
That's the
yes,
station break. Go ahead, my brother. Just before the Million Man March.
right. So, and then the Million Man March was just an overwhelming event. I mean, it was life altering. So I thought it was going to be like that all the time. I was like, this, but lo and behold, this is a you're in it for life. You know, so it's been a long journey. Um, to make a long story short, in 1996, after being in the mosque for a while and getting acclimated to how things actually go, I was rotating off of a post on a Wednesday night, sitting in the audience. There's a few of us in there, and it was a beautiful brother James 12. I love the brother. He was teaching how to eat to live. He was reading directly out of the book, Brother Leroy, directly out of the book. But he did such a terrible job, in my opinion. So I said to myself, I could do a better job than that. So that's when I began to start reading the book itself and began to alter my diet according to the teachings. Because when you first read How to Eat to Live, you either get it the first time or you got to read it several times to really make all the necessary changes to improve your health. It's not just something that happens overnight. And I've been on a 25-year journey and trying to live a better lifestyle to give myself better health.
Okay, so folks outside of the nation, they know what the Muslims don't do. They don't do this, they don't do that. And one of those don'ts is, man, they don't eat no pork. Man, I ain't down with that, man, because I was raised on pork, and that can't get away with that. And what was your involvement with the different foods, that traditional foods that your parents, in fact, where are your parents originated from, and therefore the diet, and what adjustments did you have to make that was kind of difficult for you to make in the beginning, food wise?
Yes, sir. Um, my parents, my mother's side of the family, they're from the South, Augusta, Georgia, and Greenville, South Carolina. My father, uh, I'm not too sure of where his father is because he passed away when my father was 2 years old. So I have to
Mm,
search on him. But my grandmother, my father's mother, she's 100% Jamaican, but she was born in the United States in Harlem, and her parents,
mhm.
Spanish Town, Jamaica. So the pork was on both sides. You know, it was
You were
ham.
a jerk. You were a jerk if you didn't eat no pork.
That's right. Well, didn't know any better. It was no one in the family really rallying the family against eating pork out of the Bible and the Holy Quran. But ironically, we did have family members on both sides that were in the Nation of Islam prior to 1975. But you know, when you're a 5-year-old child and you're eating bacon for breakfast, you don't know the difference. But
Hmm.
my parents were very accommodating to my change in diet as I became a Muslim. There was no pushback. But you always get the occasional questions when you tell people that you're a vegetarian. You know, I don't just wear a label on my lapel saying I'm vegetarian. And they ask you the requisite questions. You know, where do you get your protein from? You know, how long have you been vegetarian? Why did you become vegetarian? And as you answer those questions, you want to make sure you're giving concise information, not vague information, and telling them the benefits of switching to a vegetarian diet. But also, I stress not beating up people who don't want to change their diet. You know, that's where they are. All you can do is present the truth to them and they take it or leave it alone. So if there are people listening to this who still eat pork, it is not good for you, but I would never condemn you for still eating that way because it's growing up habitually from being a child. You were fed that.
Okay, and I'm jumping ahead, but I'm gonna come back. You have been working with brothers who are coming in, or what is called processing into the Nation of Islam, and you teach one of the sections of that processing uh, um, model, and that is how to eat to live. What are some of the, and many of these brothers have now come into the nation. So you saw them when they were, just being introduced to the diet, and you're seeing some after. So talk about some of the transitions that you have seen based on the unawareness and the questions that you were asked at the beginning when you saw these brothers come in.
Right. Thank you for the question. Uh, we're dealing with our people, and our people are all Aboriginal people, um, Latino, uh, Native American. They could even be from the continent itself, Africa or India, wherever the people come. We all have different cultural foods, but in the Nation of Islam, certain cultural foods are as Yahweh Muhammad said, Allah forbids or he prohibits. And I want to introduce to the new brothers coming in those types of foods that if you commingle with us and you become a member of the Nation of Islam, we have events together. We may even go over to each other's house and break bread. That I don't want you to try to put out a plate of food with items on it that we do not eat and feel insulted by me not wanting to eat it. And it's not just that, because you cannot, in this age of COVID, as they say, contact tracing, you cannot contact trace what people eat in their privacy. We could all say we eat healthy and go home and eat terrible. It's all personal choice and it's all personal responsibility. But when we come in contact with one another, we have to have an understanding that there's certain things that we do not eat in this Nation of Islam. And everyone has access to the books How to Eat to Live, and they come to their own conclusions. And we have to be there to try to give them color for the black and white, terminology that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad uses sometimes. For instance, we do not eat collard greens, and collard greens is a green, and health professionals say eat your greens. So a layman will ask, well, what's wrong with collard greens? And we can't just say, well, the messenger said so. You can't eat it. I have to do the research and give the background on why this type of food was given to us and why we shouldn't eat it and how it's harmful for us. And even kale. Kale, the leafy green kale, is considered a superfood in many diets and streams of thought. But we do not eat kale, and I don't want someone coming to a potluck that we may have at the mosque or in your event and say, hey, I made someone kale salad. Would you like to partake? And to be totally rejected, and they have to understand why we don't eat those types of foods. So getting those brothers acclimated to that. But on an individual level, some brothers do have eating problems. They're obese. Some brothers need to understand the benefits of eating once a day and fasting. But that is all personal choice. You can't eat for a person, and you can't fast for a person. All you can do is give them the information and why the Honorable Muhammad and Honorable Mr. Farrakhan gives us these instructions, and hopefully they'll take hold of it and receive the benefits.
What might be a couple of transitions that you saw this brother come in, and at the end of maybe 2 months of processing, writing his letter, I'm looking at, I see the changes but I'm not one of those to give the instructions on how to eat to live. I tell them where to go. See that brother over there, meaning Charles, brother Charles. So I'm looking at, here's someone coming in. They're earnest, they're sincere, but they say, well, how come? What's wrong with collard greens? What's wrong with kale? What's wrong with a little bacon every now and then? Pork bacon. Break those down to us.
Well, that is a difficult question to answer when someone asks you, well, what's wrong with a little kale? Uh, I could easily answer that. But I mean, that would take some time to break down. It's easy to answer what's wrong with bacon. I could go from Bible to Quran to even medical science and teach on uh, how the pig has the microscopic worm in it called the trichine worm. And, there are videos of people with these worms. Sometimes they're referred to as tapeworms, and how these worms incubate themselves in the human body and move around, and they survive intense heat. So you can't kill them by cooking the pork at a high rate of heat. You'll kill some of them. But if you really look at the logic, you're eating a cooked worm sandwich. If you're into that type of thing, I mean, sometimes worms do have proteins, but the worms that do survive get into you. And Yahweh Muhammad teaches this, and we should take heed to everything that he says, is that these worms, their aim is to get up to the brain. They travel through your spinal column, getting into your spinal column through your intestines, and they get up into the brain. He says they get up into the gray matter, and they begin to affect your thinking and your emotional state. So you become more brazen. Now, brazen can have its uses, but when you have a situation where it takes you to really sit down and think and process something, and in between that thought, the transfer of information between neurons in your brain, there's a worm right in the middle of it, altering that. And is that the brazenness caused people to become very aggressive and upset. And at the same time, he says that eating this animal sounds the mental power. So you become very docile. So on a plantation, the slave makers, in agreement with the slave master, had the enslaved African given a steady diet of pork in his food to kind of make them docile in terms of receiving instruction and working from sun up to sundown. So we want to get away from those foods that alter our thinking, in it. And every time someone asks us a question, what's wrong with this food? You got to give enough time for the explanation to be given. And sometimes I have to run and get a book and say, hey, read this for yourself. This is what's been documented. So any type of food has its good and its bad. And Abdullah Muhammad said that all foods have poisons in them. Some have more, some have less. But the proper foods that his teacher gave him is what we should eat in abundance, and try to get away from foods like you just mentioned, pork and kale, that have more harmful elements to them than benefits.
Now, what is it to what some of us heard that, for example, collard greens is a weed, and we had to eat that because they kept the best, the slave makers and masters kept the best for themselves.
Yes, sir.
Collard greens, and quite understanding that this is a discussion between you and I. However, thousands of folks are looking at it right now over YouTube, and maybe you can give direction as to where they can begin research on kale and research on collard greens. And we're talking specifically, Brother Charles, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this to the audience. We're talking specifically how to eat to live, the body of knowledge and how to eat to live was specifically given to Black people in America, and for particular reasons, which Brother Charles just touched on a bit in terms of how we think and how we don't think. So just even though it may be a disservice to people not to give a full blown out on kale and collard greens, they are listening now. So give them direction anyway.
Okay, I'll try my best. I like to talk in commonalities, things that we can all agree with. Because when I say something, I want the respondent to do this. Yeah, that's right. We are into the New York Public school system or any school system in the United States, and we were told certain things about plants. And the person would go, yes. Now, if you know the anatomy of a plant, there's the root, the stem, there's the leaves, and all of them, for the most part, have flowers on the top. And some of these plants bear fruit. Now, in the Bible, in the book of Genesis 1, verse 29, God talks to us and he tells us what we should eat. And he says that I have given you every seed-bearing plant as food. Now, a seed-bearing plant are watermelons, grapes, navy beans. These are all plants, pumpkins. They grow on vines. All right. I heard it through the grapevine. So those are the plants that we are to look for food. Then he says, I give you every tree with fruit with seed in it. So what are trees with fruit with seed? Apples, oranges, pears, peaches, those types of trees. And then he says, but for all the animals, for everything that creeps and crawls, I'm paraphrasing, he says, I give every green plant for food. So green plants are the kale, the collard greens, the mustard greens, those plants that grow on the ground where you see deer, elk, moose, cows, bison, those animals, they're called ruminants, they have the stomachs to eat green leaves.
Mm.
There's no culture on this planet, or I've done research on and in recorded history where their staple food is a leaf or a leaf. They'll use leaves as a garnish, and they'll put it on in between two pieces of bread in a burger per se, or dice it up in as a spice or a seasoning. But there's no culture that lives off of a leaf, because leaves, for one thing, have very little nutritional value. Then the plant uses its leaves to catch rainwater and sunlight. It's virtually, most leaves are paper thin, so they do not hold nutrition in there. Plants hold their nutrition in their fruit and in their root.
Mm.
So if you want to get nutrition from a plant, you eat its fruit, or you could get into its root, which is the carrot, the turnip, the onion, the garlic. Those are their roots. That's where they hold their nutrition. So the other element of the green leaf is that you need to have the components in your digestive system to digest leaves. And we do not have that. That's why when we eat collard greens, we get heavy gas, because the stomach is working and working and working to break it down. And we don't have it. Cows have it. They have what it takes to break down green leaves. We don't have it. But cows have 4-chambered stomach. We have 1 chamber. And so we don't have the horsepower to break down green leaves. The only creatures that have the ability to digest green leaves easily are insects and ruminant animals. And so it's okay for us to eat it occasionally, like a salad. The Amblash Muhammad teaches, which is romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce. But certain green leaf vegetables are harmful for us to eat because they're very hard to digest, and they have elements in them. Some people call them nightshades, where they're phytates and phytic acid that we're not equipped to deal with. That we need to leave it to the beasts of the field, as the Amblash Muhammad teaches and scientists teach. That green leaves are more, I'm sorry, the Bible teaches that green leaves are for the beast and not for the human adult.
Now he in How to Live, he talks about cabbage, and he has a eat the cabbage, but not what is you're familiar with that? What is it about the cabbage? We eat cabbage, but not the outer leaves or whatever.
All right, beautiful question. Yeah, most Blanche Mama teaches that we are to eat cabbage, but he said eat the white part of cabbage, not the green. See, the green has more cellulose in it, and cellulose is something that termites eat. Termites love cellulose. So we
Mm,
have the digestion of termites. You know, those insects and ruminant animals love green leaves. So he said eat the white part. But the beautiful part of your question is that now we're getting into immunity.
come on, come on with it. Can you hear me, Brother Charles? We're speaking with Brother Charles of Mosque Number Seven in New York. He's a researcher. He has done extensive research on how to eat to live, the book itself, and the particular fasting, etc., that is in contained in these two books, How to Eat to Live One, How to Eat to Live Two. Continue, brother Charles.
Brother Leroy, he's frozen.
Oh, he's working on his computer.
Yeah, he's working on getting connecting
Oh,
back, so he's coming back in.
okay, got it.
Yeah, but hold on the fort until he
Thank you.
does. Yes, and make sure you eat the white part of your cabbage.
And that's what I make my coleslaw from.
Oh,
Indeed.
I want to now. Hey, can you ask him about the sweet potato
Yes,
and
definitely.
whether that is you know whether that is one of the desired items that we get that people should be eating.
He'll have a field day with that one.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about him is that that like he said, there's a lot of people that sell food in restaurants, but they don't tell you what break down why you should eat this or why you shouldn't eat that, and what's the history of why people eat the things that they eat. Because we all
Right.
grow up eating stuff that people give us. You know, you have to eat it, or at a certain age you have to eat the food, otherwise you might get bust upside your head. You got to eat your, people struggle for get to the table and say, I want to eat something. They be
That's
getting
right.
all upset.
That ain't going down.
Yeah,
That's not
maybe,
going down, brother.
maybe some of the young people don't know about that era, but
Man,
but
it's not
because
going down. What
you
I'm
bet.
amazed with, Brother Doug, is the fact that I live in a building where there are stoves and refrigerators, but I'm amazed at how much we spend on
Stunning,
deliveries, food deliveries.
stunning,
It's
stunning.
I'm amazed.
Uh,
Is he ready yet?
well, he's. I'm going to say that he is now uh, black.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
sorry about that.
Okay. So we can continue. But How to Eat to Live and is a book that's available from the Final Call. You go into Final Call and you see how to acquire the book. In New York, in Harlem, How to Eat to Live is available at 127th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. There's a brother with a table of Muslim literature, prayer rugs, Qurans, etc. And his name is Brother Joe. You get bean pies there, squash pies, etc. on the corner of 127th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard on the downtown side of the street. So, How to Eat to Live is a book easily accessible. And once you get familiar with the book and see when it was published in the 60s, there are titles of books that have been copied from How to Eat to Live, some of the principles. You'll find those books in your bookstore when they open. A lot of books are now have now come out using many of the principles of How to Eat to Live. How to Eat to Live is a very important component to the Nation of Islam. people who see the Muslim brothers on the street with the paper. It's not only the suit and bow tie and white shirt, but it's also how they look. It's also how they've been transformed from what they were before, visual wise, to a individual who didn't hardly exist before. So Hadi to live, you don't have to become a member of the Nation of Islam to benefit from Hadi to live. What you have to do is have an open mind and desire to live longer. Once again, the context of this interview is dealing with your immune system and how you can protect your immune system, how you can build your immune system based on diet, and how you can victimize yourself by the diet that you might currently have that makes you way, way bigger than what you need to be, and also taking in various mind altering substances that can impact on your immune system also. Brother Charles, back with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Brother Charles, we struck a chord of immunity when we mentioned the cabbage, and please proceed.
Okay, the when the cabbage is fermenting, it builds up good bacteria in it, and this is what it's called a probiotic food. And
Mm,
foods or fermented foods for the most part that are chock full of enzymes and bacteria in it that aids the digestive system of us adult humans and even children to a certain degree. So we want to get away from the medication field, the pharmaceuticals that want to give you antibiotics. Now, if we know anything about Greek, learn coming from the new United States school system, is that anti means against, and biotic comes from bio, which is Greek for life. So you're putting in something that's anti-life, which is could be also considered death. And antibiotics they just carpet bomb your whole digestive tract, which is where 70 to 80% of your immune system lies. Intestine.
give that again. Give that piece again as it relates to the digestive tract.
The digestive tract holds 70 to 80% of the components of your immune system. I'm not
Okay.
a medical doctor, I'm not a scientist, but if you do the research, you'll find out that your sickness begins in the digestive tract for the most part. If it
Mm,
is chronic disease, very different from viral disease, a venereal disease, and a genetic disease. How to Eat to Live deals with chronic diseases come from eating improperly or eating things that may have been tainted to a degree. You may get sick, get a fever, have stomach ache, vomit, and then you go to the hospital. Now, doctors are supposed to be tentative, hesitant to give you an antibiotic because it wipes out um, your immune system, all the bacteria. It kills everything, the good and the bad. The way your immune system is supposed to work is supposed to be a big happy family of good and bad bacteria learning from one another. The bad bacteria says, yeah, I can hurt you in this way, but the good bacteria is keeping me at bay. And the good bacteria is saying, yeah, we're going to keep the bad bacteria here so you built up an immunity. So when another element of it comes in, we'll say, hey, we recognize this guy because he's just like that other guy over there. So we're going to deal with him. And basically, your white blood cells just attack the element that's an invader. It puts what they call a mucus around it, and then they give it a signature. So it's identified, and then it
mm,
gets out the body. That's the way it's supposed to work. But if you take an antibiotic, your body has to rebuild its immune system over time.
mm,
So the doctor will say, hey, you got to, cut back on eating some of the heavy foods that may work your digestive system as you take this antibiotic. And as the body begins to bring back the immune system, it's never quite the same. And sometimes it takes years to fully rebuild your digestive tract with the proper bacteria. And sometimes you never fully recover, and you develop allergies. Now all of a sudden, I'm allergic to apples, or I'm allergic to fish, or I'm allergic to,
Mm.
and I never was allergic to nuts. Why? Because your body no longer has that bacteria in it that it recognizes. So when you eat certain foods, it causes an allergic reaction. And
Grant
one thing,
houses community radio, the soul of the Upper West Side.
and and like I said,
Yeah.
with commonality, we all have taken an antibiotic in our lifetime, whether it was an ear infection, a pink eye, a toothache, some type of bellyache. We all have what is in common of taking an antibiotic at some point in time.
Hmm. Okay. Talking about the immune system, let's just stay a little bit with that in terms of how the regular diets that we're on impact the immune system. You gave us a heading, the digestive tract, um, where 78 to 80% of the immune system is at work. Why did the creator put the immune system in that area, the digestive tract?
Well, the beautiful thing that I believe is that the creator also gave us, I'll start off right here. A newborn baby is born without an immune system. It gets its immunity by breastfeeding off of the mother. The mother in her mammary gland, her breast milk, has the immunity, the enzymes, the bacteria, the nutrients that builds up the child's immune system as it's ingesting it. There's no other way to get something into your body except through the mouth. I mean, there are colonics, where they put a tube in the place where I won't mention, but for the child, for what is natural, pardon me, there's a truck on what is natural to everything on this planet that's living is consuming food. So our natural foods that we eat, but whatever type of species we are, should be aiding our immunity to help keep us strong. You don't want to have a natural food for you that depletes your immunity. So it's a self-defeating process. You're basically killing yourself, as Elijah Muhammad says, with your knife and your fork, by eating foods that you think are natural for you, but are really taken away from your immunity. So the gut is centralized in the body. It's right in the middle of your torso, so to speak. And that's where, after the stomach is done with the food, breaking it down, the absorption of nutrients happens in the small intestine. And it's 23 feet of the small intestine where the absorption is taken out into the bloodstream of the nutrients, and then it begins to go to be circulated where it needs to go. Now, it's not in the extreme part of the body, which is the head or the feet, so it's centralized.
Okay, and my mind goes to substances, food, drinks that can tax the immune system. Once they get into the gut, the immune system has to kick in and do this, that, and the other. You mentioned pork, and the the immune system does react to the invasion of the system to parasites and whatnot. Um, what other what other foods outside of pork would food or drink that would impact on the immune system in the gut area?
Oh, brother, you may have to throw out the entire American uh, way of eating, because they call it SAD, SAT, the Standard American Diet. It, ironically, is plant-based. It is potatoes, white rice, wheat products, but processed wheat products, and corn and soy. They're all plants. 75% of the American diet is plants, but they're processed and they're put in a state where they're petrified. The Ambalaj Muhammad said that, um, I would say, I don't want to say white man, but white man runs this country. They commercialize on the food industry and they want to make sure their products can stay on the shelf months at a time. And anything that lasts months on the shelf is no good for you on the inside of you
Mm.
because your interior, your intestines rebuilds itself once every 5 days. All the old cells are gone and new cells replace it. The tissue was rebuilt once a week. So why would you eat something that could last almost half a year on the shelf and have
Okay.
your delicate intestines was almost like soft, wet tissue paper trying to break it down? So the idea uh, of trying to get people to recognize that the foods from the supermarket are so poor and processed is it's a difficult task. You know, Elijah Muhammad said that it's like putting pants on an elephant. He got one leg on already. We have to teach the people that even though something says is labeled plant based, that doesn't mean that it is good for you. I give you an example. Um, there's a product called I can't believe it's not butter
Right.
because it's not. It's basically vegetable oil, partially hydrogenated, and it is petrified into a soft clay. And you add food color into it and some, I guess, flavoring, and it looks like, it feels like, and tastes like butter, but it's not. It's oil. And partially hydrogenated oils are the leading causes of heart disease and the clogging of the arteries because it's basically you're layering your veins with
Mm.
soft clay that likes to get hard when it's cool
Mm.
and it gets very soft when it's hot. You know, it's going through all three stages of matter. It wants to become air and solid and liquid, and it forms itself in whatever temperature it's in. So you don't want something that's in an adamant object inside of your body. It's not living, but is, you know, becoming solid and soft that in different parts of your body. It'll get hard in the wrong part, and you'll need a bypass surgery. So it is an arduous task to try to get our people out of the supermarkets and into making foods in their home. And one last example is bread. Every culture makes a bread. Here in America, it seems to be the wheat bread, or I should say white bread, which comes from wheat. And the the average loaf of bread in the supermarket has over 22 ingredients in it. The Elijah Muhammad said that you can make bread with two ingredients. That's
Mm.
wheat flour and water. You could add yeast to it, but some say that yeast is already in the atmosphere. So if you let the dough sit, the yeast will help aid the bread. It's a process called leavening. You know, I don't have time to get into all of that, but I could give about an hour course on just how wheat bread is grown and how it should make it to your plate before you eat it. And it's a long process. But the commercializers of wheat bread, they speed it up. And when you speed up the process, you cause the wheat grain, which is actually a fruit, to harden its shell and become harder to digest. And now people say, I'm gluten intolerant, which is not the case. We just need to slow it down, get real wheat flour, just add water to it, put it in the oven, and then you got bread, and without all the harmful dough softeners and harmful oils in it that will harm you. You know, you have a good meal, and that is one of the staple foods that Elijah Muhammad taught us was good, pure wheat bread.
Okay. So we have a society, we live in a society where folks are eating a number of times during the day, either out of habit, either out of addiction, or just stress, etc. And they're going, they're passing waste 2, 3, or 4 times a week. what's happening in their body as it relates to the immune system, and how do we move from the infrequency of, well, it's constipation. How do we move from the infrequency of passing waste to passing waste that would benefit our being?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Um, the best thing about How to Eat to Live is that there's no money in it. You're not going to get rich teaching how to eat to live, because I I would feel uncomfortable giving you the solutions to eating better and try to get better health, and then try to sell you a supplement, or I have a diet plan that if you send me 25.99, I'll freeze it and I'll mail it to you. You know, the Elijah Muhammad said that 90% of our ailments can be cured by fasting. Fasting is just stop eating. There's no treatment, there's no medication necessary. You just need to cut back on eating. And the process of fasting in medical terms is called autophagy. That's when the body begins to eat its waste, and get energy from its waste. It may sound disgusting, but it's a natural phenomenon that is necessary to cure you of your ailments. If you have, he says it's good for sugar diabetes, and definitely is good for high blood pressure and all these other ailments that are basically caused by um, eating out of order and causing the buildup, as you said, of waste in the digestive tract, and distracting the immune system from doing what it can do to protect the body, but it's just holding waste. So people who have a pot belly, that's usually a layer of fat, but their doctors will say that the intestines begin to leach into that pouch, where your intestines begin to be stretched out of shape. And the Ambalaj Muhammad told us that certain foods that you eat that expand in the stomach and stretch out in the intestines and cause them to buckle, which means stretch them out of shape. And then in those pockets that are stretched out of shape, certain foods that are passing through the intestines could get lodged in there and stay there for years. Right?
Mm.
You may uh, eat something back in the 2000s, the aughts, the '08, and you start fasting and you see elements of it in your stool in 2020, because
Mm.
the body is now beginning to process its waste. And Al-Blaj Muhammad said that a lot of us have 60 days of waste just in the lining of the intestines. And that is causing the blood become impure. Whereas the blood passes in and out, the intestine tissue is taking these elements with it and taking it throughout the body. Now imagine when you fast and your body eats up the lining of your intestines, it cleans it out. Then you got pure, clean blood going all throughout your brain and giving you good thoughts and good feeling, and it's replenishing all of your internal organs, your skin. Your skin will be much brighter and smoother instead of dry and rough, if that is your condition. But autophagy is the process when you are abstaining from eating, and autophagy can happen just by eating one meal a day. Elijah Muhammad said that the only time you should eat more than one meal a day is if you can't get enough food from eating one meal. And there's some of us who do have intestinal problems where we're not able to extract nutrients enough, so we should eat a second meal. But you really should eat one meal a day. Once your body stops growing, you mature, you're 18, 19, your body stops growing, you don't need to eat 2 and 3 meals a day to continue to synthesize proteins into growing tissue, because you stop growing. You continue to eat 2, 3 meals a day, you'll start growing horizontally and growing a second self. We want to keep ourselves in the perfect body mass index and not packing in weight in the gut area of having 3 and 4 meals in the 32 feet of intestines, where you can have 3, 4, sometimes 6 meals just backed up, waiting to be let
Mm.
out. Now, the issue with constipation is not necessarily a dehydration issue. Is once again, it's a bacteria issue, because bacteria is what brings together the fecal matter in the large intestine for it to be passed out. If the bacteria is not there doing its job, the fecal matter doesn't come out tubular. I don't want to be very vulgar and gross. Instead of tubular, you get little pellets. You know, reading, pardon me, this book right here, What Your Poop Is Telling You. I know you probably can't read it because it's the language is inverted. It'll tell you what is constipation, what is causing it. It's not always necessarily dehydration. It's an issue in your intestines that could be dealing with your enzymes and bacteria, which really pushes the fecal matter together into, in the rectum, as you could say, and then it's pushed out. So there's some of us who go to the bathroom and just release 4 or 5 pellets, and it's still in there. You may need to see a doctor, a health professional, take an enema, and to really, get the proper excitement of those enzymes to pack it all in and push it out, and then see what you are eating or what you're not eating that's not causing the enzymes to do its job inside your body.
The issue of constipation, how, based on your reading, based on your research, how often should a person be passing waste per day?
Well, based upon what they're eating, if you're eating 1 meal a day like myself, you should go once a day, and it's at the same time period. And I drink coffee, and coffee is what they call diuretic, and it causes that, it induces that. So around 10 a.m., I have coffee, and then you get that urge. But if you are eating two times a day, it's hard for me to tell because I haven't been experiencing that, but you may go twice in that day. It really should match the amount of food that you're eating. If you're eating 2 meals,
Pardon me, that's the phone. Go ahead, my brother.
so if the stomach holds about 2 pounds of food, and I'm sorry, if the stomach holds 2 pounds of food and you eat a meal, let's say you fill up. So you have to wait for that meal to come out. Now, the Mayo Clinic did an experiment in the 1980s, and they timed how long it takes for an average meal to leave the body after being eaten. It's 33 hours. So, if you ate something on Sunday morning, it's not going to come out until Monday afternoon. So constipation is a tricky thing. You don't know which meal that is clogging you up, and where it's clogging you up. Is it where the large intestine meets the small intestine, or is at the base of the large intestine? So in my estimation, and when I'm not constipated, it's once a day you should be going.
At least once a day.
Yes.
And
yes.
and in terms of exercise, walking, and some people are into jogging. What impact does that have on the inner workings of the body and ultimately the immune system, if at all?
Yes, it plays a large role. Before talking about walking, I would like to talk about prayer. Because
Okay, very good.
the prayer that we're taught is very similar to yoga, the positions. How you take your head and you put it down towards your waistline, and then you get down and you bend your legs, which opens up the main veins in the thighs, the 2 big veins, which increases blood flow. And then you put your head down to the ground, the lowest point. So you're increasing the blood flow to the brain. So one thing we also have to understand is that the stomach and the brain have a lot in common, and they're connected by a nerve called the vasgus nerve. So when you're not feeling good and you are worrying, it bothers your stomach and your head. So what we do,
Right.
we go to the God and the God within, and we go to prayer, and we do those positions, and those positions are therapeutic. They're not just rituals, they're therapeutic in aiding not just the blood flow, but also aids in digestion. You know, you're basically getting into a fetal position, kind of squeezing the intestines a little bit, trying to increase the pressure on the body to release itself. And when you have good circulation, you're getting the nutrients throughout the body, which aids in proper nutrition and health for the body in terms of immunity. And you had mentioned earlier in the show wearing gloves. Now, to me, I do not like wearing gloves. I know the risks, and I'm not trying to tell anyone not to wear proper PPE, but the hands are meant to be open and to touch. The surface of your palm is very rough, and it has a different type of texture than the back of your hand. To whereas it has more layers, the thicker layers, so that it can deal with touching something that is not clean. And the virus that we're dealing with now is aerosolized. So it won't penetrate you through your skin pores, but your hands are meant to breathe also. Your skin is an organ. It's the largest organ on your body. You have to allow it to breathe. When you cut off the air to certain parts of your body, it begin to change the moisture in your skin, and it could cause a bacterial issue with your hands. So
Hmm.
it if you have a good immune system, which is in your gut, if you come in contact with the virus or any virus, your body will fight it off. You may be asymptomatic or you have mild symptoms, but the gloves is basically allowing you not to touch something and then accidentally touching your mouth, your nose, and your eye to have it go in that way. So, in essence, but let me get back to the prayer and the exercise.
Yes.
Those positions of prayer, where we're talking about the salat of the Muslims, or even if you do the Christian style prayer, where you at least get on your knees and you may put your hands together, put your head down, try to get as low as possible so you could have that blood circulating to the top of your head. I mean, gravity also works inside the body, and blood getting up to the brain, it still has to work through gravity with the heart pumping it. But the best exercise, Elijah Muhammad said, is walking. But I stress rigorous walking, where you're pumping your arms along with it, and not just the casual stroll. You know how black men walk. We have a
Right.
walk where it's almost effortless. But in any time where you call something an exercise, you want to get the respiratory system going, and you want to break a sweat. You want to kind of flush out some of the toxins in the skin to make it more healthier, and you help the body to cool off by putting the sweat on top of the skin, and the heart begins to pump blood faster, and the friction of the heart pumping blood through the veins increases the rate of removing plaque from the insides of your veins. That works through friction, removing plaque from the veins. When the blood flow is slowed up and things begin to clog up, that's when plaque begins to attach itself to the inner lining of your veins.
Hmm. And the value of the head, of the blood flowing to the head, you're bowing down in prayer, whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Muslim, etc., or even taking the yoga position. What's the benefit of that again?
I'm sorry, can you
The
repeat
blood
that?
flow, the blood flow to the brain, the
Mhm.
prayer position and And you pointed out that one of the benefits is the blood flow to the brain. What does that do for the body?
Well, the blood flow to the brain. Well, the brain is the central guide for all of our systems. So it gives the brain nutrients, and the brain works off of
Okay, got it.
oxygen, sugar, and it builds itself with fat, but it works off of oxygen and sugar. And the blood is full of fats, oxygen, and sugar. It takes it to the brain. The brain is 60% fat, so it's a very spongy type of tissue. And once the brain is healthy, it can it also produces chemicals for the body. Well, basically for cognitive health and mental health. And
Mm,
fasting also aids in that. Fasting is a good weapon against dementia and Alzheimer's in terms of eating up the bad cells. There's cells in the body that just go bad. They call them free radicals, or some cells are very on the verge of turning cancerous. The body will attack it, and some people do have brain tumors that can be attacked by having clean blood going to the brain and attacking these cells that are offline, and either bring them back online or get rid of them. And so they won't infect other brain cells, become cancerous.
and just a definition, therapeutic. You said the prayer positions are not just a homage or recognition of the God presence in our lives, but it's also therapeutic. Therapeutic means what?
Well, therapeutic in terms of physical therapy, and therapeutic in its natural sense, meaning that it when you have a chronic ailment and you need treatment, it's a therapy.
Okay.
Where it matches the chronic appearance of the pain or ache, the commonality. I mean, I get aches and pains now, brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm not 100% invulnerable
You're
to
Right.
tuned in to GHCR, Grant House's Community Radio, home of the Community News Service.
I'm
Okay.
not 100% invulnerable. I'm not Superman. I may not have as many aches and pains as you or those who are listening. But one thing we have to understand is that there are people who do like to build muscle, but muscle are 100% reliant on your ligaments and your tendons. And once your ligaments and tendons start acting up, you're not doing anything. Your hamstring goes from your buttock all the way down to your ankle, your calf ankle. You rupture that thing just a little bit, you're not doing anything. It's a tendon. You know,
Mm,
the cartilage and the ligaments in your spinal column. You mess those things up, you don't want to do anything. You don't want anyone touching you. So the prayer in the positions, it alleviates pressure. It's like these pressure points in those positions. You alleviate the pressure for a while, and you allow blood. When you're kind of stretching, you allow blood to get into places where it doesn't normally will go, whether when you're sleeping or when you're walking upright or in a sitting position. So that what we call sajda, where we're kneeling, we're on our knees. I mean, that position is supposed to alleviate a lot of the aches and pains in the knees and in the ankle. And you allow your ligaments and tendons to receive aid that from the blood. The blood is a very comforting liquid for a lot of tissue, all the tissues in the body. When you give them a little stretch, you open them up and blood goes in there. When you don't stretch them out, what do they say? You cramp up, because there's the elasticity of the tendon or the ligament. It's being stressed because it doesn't have, I guess, the fluidity in it from blood. And you really got to pull it apart sometimes for blood to get deep into it to make it more healthy. And the fasting also helps heal the holes that do form in these ligaments. You know, you won't get arthritis and rheumatism as much, which are basically aches and pains from holes inside those tendons. And when you try to extend your finger, it's very painful. Or you try to grab something, you might have a bit of gout, you know, and it's very, very painful. So what we are giving in the 100% of the teachings of the Most High Muhammad is therapeutic.
Period.
Yes. Yes, sir.
It's what you just explained about the praying, the prayer position. It encompasses the spiritual, the physical, and the mental. And it's not just a labor, or I gotta pray. No, what you're doing is causing a rejuvenation in multiple areas of your life, and definitely in your body. Stretching is stretching.
Yes,
Meaning,
sir.
I'm looking at people stretching in the park and whatnot. That is what you're talking about, stretching. Now, people are locked down. They have voluntarily locked themselves down in the home. There are people who are literally afraid to go out in terms of COVID. And by the way, the Final Call newspaper, the issue of the Final Call newspaper that just came out today says, it's a quote from Minister Farrakhan, don't take their vaccine. And he gives the reasons. So that's for the audience. The Final Call newspaper has taken a very bold step. Today, the Surgeon General began to talk about the COVID-19 and vaccine. He's been kept quiet. He's supposed to be the Surgeon General when you look at the definition or the responsibility of his particular area of work. He's supposed to be the lead person. Instead, we've seen Fossey, Burdex, and others, but not him. But today they brought him out, and my rationale for their bringing him out today and speaking on COVID-19 and vaccines, et cetera, is because of the front page of the Final Call. Don't take their vaccine, but that's up to you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Brother Charles, as we wind up this interview, what are some foods that you have? There are a couple of questions. What are some foods that you have in your research you have seen that we brought over here along with us, you know, hidden, whatever, that are beneficial to us, foods that we have, spices, herbs that we have used that we just use them today, but they have, just like you explained about the prayer position, they have multiple benefits to the body.
Well, I don't want you to be upset with me, but spices are not foods, and I really can't give advice on, let's say, someone's teaching on how turmeric is beneficial to the body.
Okay.
It is. It's not a food. You can't sit down and eat a plate of turmeric. You'll get very, and,
Wait a
like,
minute, that's what I plan to have tonight, brother.
well, turmeric, the root. You saw the movie Malcolm X, right?
Yes.
Do you remember the scene when he's in prison and he's like going through withdrawals? And the brother who educated him in prison came to him and gave him something in a tin cup, and he took it. And then Malcolm just kind of woke up. You know what he gave him? He gave him
No.
raw nutmeg. You know, some of these spices that in their raw form are very harmful to you in high doses. Cinnamon, if you ate a couple of spoonfuls of cinnamon, raw cinnamon, you'll pop a blood vessel. So
Mm.
not foods. Yes, we do have spices that are very helpful for us, but they need to be added to a staple food that gives you 100% of all the nutrients that you need. See, there's a difference between somebody eating to heal themselves and someone eating to sustain their health. Now, if you are sick and you're looking for a remedy, yes, you could go to these spices and try to get a remedy from them. But the Elijah Muhammad, he only gave 2 recipes in How to Live. One is on navy bean soup and one is on cornbread and wheat bread. Everything else, he wants you to eat whole foods. He wants you to cook for yourself so you don't have to try to heal yourself. But I know nowadays we're all suffering from something and looking for certain foods that can heal us. He told us that fasting is our healing. He says many of the doctors know it, but they won't teach you. They won't teach you how to fast. So what do? We want to play musical chairs with foods. I'm going to take this out. When the music stops, I'm going to put it in. Put this in. I'm going to take this out. And when the music stops, I'm going to put this in. No, you want to heal yourself? You got to restrict your eating and eat the foods that he recommended. And I can only come from How to Live. He recommended raw milk in his products. He recommended whole wheat bread, and he recommended the navy bean. And there are reasons why those foods are recommended to us. Now, the foods that we kind of brought with us to the United States, you could say, whether it's from the Caribbean or from the motherland, if you want to call it that, Africa, a lot of them are really harming us right now. These root vegetables, and you get up in my age, I'm 45, you got to cut back on these starchy foods like cassava, yams, sweet potatoes. These root vegetables are not good for us. They're chock full of sugars. We can't be eating vegetables rich in sugars and starch. We like to eat rice and peas. You know, a plate of rice is not good for a Black man or woman in their mid 40s and 50s. That's just pure starch, it's sugar. And you know what COVID-19 loves? It loves sugar. 40% of the people who passed away had the pre-existing condition of diabetes or they were pre-diabetic. So the Elijah Muhammad told us to get away from eating sugary, starchy foods. That's something that we could do in terms of bettering the health across all age levels. Don't eat a plate of rice. No more macaroni salad, no more macaroni and cheese, no more potato salad. Don't get fries with that if you're going to a restaurant. You know, no plates of rice. A Chinese food restaurant, I'm sorry, I got to call it that. They're not really Chinese food. That's not how the Chinese really eat. But there's certain restaurants that will give you rice for free because it's worthless and has no nutrition. You know, we have to stop eating corn products. You know, corn is almost like an industrial textile. You can make tires from corn, you know, plastics, you know, and Elijah Muhammad taught us how and when we should eat corn. We really need to eliminate certain foods from our diet, these starchy, sugary foods, and really eat the foods that he taught us to. And they're listed in How to Live. In particular, in book 2, he says his teacher told him the common, simple foods are the best foods. The raw milk products, the navy bean, and the bread. If you want to build up your immune system, eat a lot of yogurt. Even if it's pasteurized, it has a lot of good bacteria in it. It reinforces your immune system. It doesn't have lactose in it. Lactose is eliminated when milk turns into cream and butter. Lactose eliminated. So you can't tell me you're lactose intolerant and you can't eat yogurt. There are books that will teach you. Pardon me. This book right here. I know the wording is inverted, but it says a scientific and clinically proven approach to safely bringing wheat and dairy back into your diet. Those of us who think that most Black people or Africans or African diaspora are lactose intolerant, that is not true. You could go to the continent right now and find people called the Maasai that live off of milk, raw milk, straight from the cow.
Mm.
Not a problem. There's certain people on the continent that just don't eat milk because it's just not part of their diet. They're in a place where they can't have cattle. You know, they grow vegetables or they eat a lot of fish. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also recommended that we do eat fish. He said fish is good for us. And in the Bible, the fish is a symbol of Jesus' work. It's a sign of the resurrection.
Right.
The cross is the sign of the crucifixion. But the Jesus, he came to make us fishers of men. So fish is a symbolic gesture or symbol of the work of resurrecting the dead and good health. You know, I'll close on this, the longest living group of people are called pescatarians. They eat fish. They're vegetarians and they eat a lot of fish. They live in blue zones. So it's in Okinawa in Japan and along those islands where all you could do is eat fish and certain vegetables. And so
What he points out, if we don't eat fish above a certain poundage.
right, above 50 pounds. He said the best fish are the 10-pound and smaller.
Okay.
Right. But we in the Nation of Islam, we sell salmon, you know, and Elijah Muhammad, prior to 1975, had a wonderful H&G fish company selling the people fish. So we need to.
Okay. The last thing relates to you, and that is, yes, you did start doing research, but there's a passion that you have regarding this subject. What do you trace that to? What was the turning point that made you move from just a researcher to someone who really can defend and dissect the two books, How to Live?
Well, recently, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, a brilliant researcher and scientist, basically, he tackled the subject by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's called The Origins of Race, or where do white people come from, if you want to just put it blank, because there's this debate going on in certain circles on the internet that man evolved from apes or an ape ancestor, and Dr. Wesley tackled that. But there are other subjects that the Honorable Muhammad put out in the course of his work with us, which is also in How to Live. You can live 1,000 years.
Right.
And do I have that book here? Here. All right. Now, I'm sorry, these words are inverted. They are studying, this says lifespan, why we age and why we don't have to. They're dealing with health on a subcellular level now, where they're trying to find out how can we study and attack these skin cells and blood cells to prevent aging. And Elijah Muhammad told us how we could live to be 1,000 years old. I don't want to be able to live 1,000, but I do want to at least live to what he promised us by eating 1 meal a day and fasting 3 days a month, once a month. He said we could live to be 140. You know, that is my goal. And that's what intrigues me on what is the proper way to live the life that he promised, that we would still look young, but be of old age and still have our faculties and move about. You know, in the Bible, Moses lived to be 120, still teaching, still following God and leading the people. He just cane. I don't mind having a cane at 120. And there are those of us who do live to be 116, 118. Some may reach 120. But that 140 mark is something I think that can be accomplished. And the Honorable Muhammad said that it is the patriarchs of old. They chose when they wanted to die, that they lived to be into their 300, 400, 500s by eating a certain way. And when they got tired of seeing the same thing over and over again, tired of living, they began to eat 3 meals a day to cause them to have a chronic illness, and it would take them out. Some of us never stop eating 3 meals a day, so we really live.
Yeah.
So the secret is not really a secret anymore. The key is calorie restriction or eating once a day, or what they call now intermittent fasting. Just basically skip some meals a week. You know, you'll feel better and look better. And that's what intrigues me about how to live. To
Brother Charles Muhammad of Mosque number 7 here in Harlem, USA, we want to thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, your research, your insights, and may God continue to bless you and bless the audience to use some aspect of what they heard today and pass the information on to others. We present information for action. So when you begin to utilize the information you hear from the wisdom table and improve your life, then we have done our job, because in improving your life, you're going to share the information with others. Once again, God bless you, my brother. Thank you. And to the audience, we thank the resident council of Grant Houses for allowing us the opportunity to bring you the wisdom table. God bless you all. Peace.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Praise be to Allah. It's bad. Yeah. Love it.
Brother Leroy,
In black person.
I want to
Yes,
thank
sir.
I want to thank you for that opportunity.